I'm just going to nickname cases like this earthquakes because they literally have me shook. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome to my strange little YouTube channel. Today we are doing another installment of my Vintage and Vanish series. Today's case is one that is so creepy, honestly one of the eeriest cases of a disappearance I have ever heard of, that when I first started researching into it, I thought it was fake. I seriously thought it was like a creepypasta or something, but it is not. It is real, and it happened in 1949. Today we are talking about the disappearance of Dorothy Forstein. In the year 1942, a woman named Dorothy Cooper married the man of her dreams, a man named Jules Forstein, and she became Dorothy Forstein. Dorothy and Jules had known each other quite a long time in their lives. They used to be childhood sweethearts, but they kind of drifted apart for a while, and they rekindled their friendship after Jules's previous wife passed away during childbirth. Jules had 2 children from his previous marriage, an infant named Marcy and an older daughter named Myrna. Jules was a clerk in the Philadelphia City Council and then was appointed city magistrate only 2 years into their marriage. Then Dorothy and Jules went on to have a child of their own, a son named Edward. So at this point, Dorothy and Jules were pretty well known among their community. Everyone seemed to like them, and from everyone's point of view, they had a pretty happy marriage. They seemed to be really in love with each other. Dorothy as a person, she was known as being just a complete sweetheart. In all honesty, she had a lot of friends. She loved making new friends. She did not like feuds or confrontation. She really tried to keep the peace with everyone. Then on January 25th, 1945, something happened to Dorothy that changed her life. Dorothy left her 3 children with a neighbor named Maria Townley, and she goes out to do some errands. Many people saw her that day, and she was perfectly fine, chatting it up with friends and the butcher while picking up meats. Dorothy had a good day. She didn't expect anything to happen. By the time that she returned home, it was dark outside. She decided, instead of going to the neighbors and picking up the children first, that she was going to go into the house, put away all the groceries, and then go get her children. Upon entering her home, she was brutally attacked by a man who leapt out from beneath the front stairs. She was punched and she was hit with a blunt instrument. She wasn't sure what this instrument was, but she was knocked unconscious. While she was fumbling and making her way inside, she actually knocked the telephone off of the hook and it landed on the ground. The operator on the other line could hear kind of what was going on, and this concerned him, and he phoned the police. When authorities arrived at the home, they found Dorothy in her hallway, laying on the ground, completely covered in blood, and she was knocked unconscious. They took her to the hospital, and she had a concussion, she had a broken jaw, a broken nose, and a fractured shoulder. When they asked her what had happened, she said, "Someone jumped out at me. I couldn't see who it was. He just hit me and hit me." Police thought at first that robbery could have been the motive, but upon returning to the home, nothing was stolen. Philadelphia Police Captain James A. Kelly looked into the case, and he came to the conclusion the man who attacked her had the intent to kill her. The first person they looked into was Jules Forstein, her husband. He had many alibis that night, so he completely checked out. As for anyone else to interview, they literally had no idea who to interview because nobody had any ill will towards Dorothy. Everyone seemed to love her. She had no enemies anywhere. So this case fizzled out very quickly and went cold. After that incident, Dorothy's life changed drastically. Other than the fact that her shoulder caused her a lot of issues, it would pop out of its socket about once or twice a year and cause just a lot of pain, and she was just very uncomfortable a lot of the times. Besides that, her entire demeanor was completely different after that day. She lived in complete fear. She was terrified. She hated being left alone. They changed the locks on the doors and the windows, and she would check them and recheck them and recheck them again. She didn't really have any quality of life anymore. She basically just lived in constant anxiety. The once extremely outgoing woman became a shut-in, and she barely left the house in fear that someone would return and something much worse would happen. And on the night of October 18th, 1949, that nightmare came true. On the night of October 18th, 1949, Jules had a political banquet to attend. According to him, he phoned Dorothy that evening telling her that he would be coming home directly after it was over, in which she replied, "Be sure to miss me." Supposedly, according to Jules, he tried to get Dorothy to go out with him that night, but she wanted to stay in with the kids instead. He tried to insist that she come out and just have a good time and they'll have the neighbors watch the children, but she just wanted to stay in that night. At around 9 p.m., Dorothy phoned a friend and they kind of discussed weekend plans and just chatted a little bit, and that was basically the last time anyone outside of the home heard from Dorothy ever again. At around 11:30 p.m., Jules walks up the front steps, unlocks the front door, walks inside, and he cannot find Dorothy or his children anywhere. He starts frantically searching the home. He makes it upstairs to an upstairs bedroom, looks inside the room, and he sees Edward and Marcy in the corner of the room, huddled together, crying, and all they say is, "Mommy is gone." His older daughter Myrna is a teenager at this time, and she was away at a friend's house spending the night. He grabs Marcy and Edward and they go downstairs, and he starts calling all of Dorothy's friends, seeing if they know anything about where she may be. He talked to her friend that said that she talked to her around 9 p.m. and they talked about weekend plans, and then hung up, and that was the last anyone had heard of Dorothy. He starts panicking a little bit, and then he decides to call Officer Kelly. By the next day, Officer Kelly had people searching hospitals, morgues, boarding homes, everywhere to see if they could possibly track down where Dorothy may be. Then 9-year-old Marcy came forward and said, "I woke up and it was late. I don't know whether I heard voices or whether I just woke up. I went to the head of the stairs and there was a man coming up. He went to Mommy's room in the front, and through a crack in the door I could see her lying on her face on the rug. She looked sick. The man turned her over on her back and picked her up. He put her over his shoulder so her head hung down his back. When I asked him what he was doing, he said, 'Go back to sleep, little one. Your mommy has been sick, but she will be all right now.'" Marcy said at the time of her disappearance, her mother was wearing red slippers and red silk pajamas, the ones that made her feel pretty. She said the man had a brown cap with a peak on it and a brown jacket and something strange sticking out of his pocket. Marcy claimed that she didn't recognize this man, she had never seen him before, but when she was asked how old he was, she said, "About Daddy's age." Marcy's account of what supposedly she saw that night is the only bit of evidence police ever had in this case of what possibly happened to Dorothy. They never found any fingerprints in the house, which is very weird because you would think a man carrying a woman on his shoulder would possibly have to touch something while he's going down the stairs, but no fingerprints were ever found. Nothing was stolen from the house, and Dorothy's belongings like her purse, her ID, her keys, everything was still left inside the house. No neighbors saw anything. You think a man carrying a woman over his shoulders in bright red silky pajamas would be kind of odd that somebody would see it or see a car pull up or something, but nobody saw anything. Another strange thing is that the door was locked when Jules came home. So whoever this man was locked the door on his way out. We all know that children have a very vivid imagination, but Marcy was seen by psychiatrists and the police believe her story and checked her out to be completely sane of mind. You also have to take into consideration that Marcy saw this man coming up the stairs. There was no telling how long this man was inside the house while Marcy and Edward were asleep. Many people think that when she said Mommy looked sick, that Dorothy was actually drugged, that this man made his way into the home and drugged Dorothy and then abducted her. If Dorothy was completely conscious, she would have screamed or moaned or tried to call the police or something. She was either drugged or she was strangled where she was unconscious. There wasn't blood from what Marcy said, so this man made his way into the house and did something to Dorothy to make her vulnerable enough where he could abduct her. That's just a little bit of a theory, but let's just get into some of the main theories in this case. The first theory is that her husband was responsible for her disappearance. There's not a whole ton of evidence to back this one up. Many just find it strange that she was attacked both times when he coincidentally wasn't around. Jules also had a high up position in the town, and after a week there wasn't much publicity about her disappearance anywhere, as if someone was trying to prevent people from talking about it. Perhaps since the first attack did not work, he planned someone else to try again a few years later. There's no known motive he would have had to get rid of her. Many simply consider this a theory. The second theory is that a 29-year-old textile salesman named Morris Anmuth may have been responsible. In September 1944, there was a crowd protesting the speech of Republican candidate Thomas E. Dewey as he was preparing to make a speech at the Pennsylvania Railroad station. 2 police officers arrested Anmuth because they found his mannerisms threatening. He was fined $10 but filed an assault and battery charge against the officers, claiming they beat him for 20 minutes. The charges were eventually dropped against the 2 officers by none other than Jules Forstein. It has been theorized by many that Anmuth possibly attacked and then abducted Dorothy to get back at Jules. The third theory is that it was possibly a stalker, someone who maybe lusted after Dorothy and knew her schedule and whereabouts 24/7. They might have took the opportunity of her being home alone with the children without her husband to pull off their plan of abducting her. Now, I personally believe that the person who tried to kill her back in 1945 and the person who abducted her in 1949 are the same person. I just find it too coincidental. So if this was the same person, you have to think that the first time they just simply wanted to kill her. They didn't try to abduct her. They could have because she was knocked unconscious, but they simply wanted to kill her. And the second time they came back, they abducted her. It just, I don't know, if it was a stalker, I feel like if it was someone who lusted after her, there would have been some sort of sexual assault the first time, but there wasn't. The theory that it was possibly her husband who had some involvement, I really don't understand, because I don't know why he would wait 4 years to try to get rid of her again if he was so persistent in trying to get rid of her. Also, on Jules's death certificate, it said that he was still married at his time of death and he didn't go on to marry anyone else. So if he wanted to get rid of her out of his life so bad, why did he still have himself as married? I don't know. The theory about Morris Anmuth trying to get revenge on Jules does seem plausible, but again, why would he wait 4 years? Like, why would you hold a grudge that long? I really don't understand. This is why this is one of the most confusing disappearance cases I have ever heard of. There was an 11-state search for Dorothy though, and they never found anything. She was finally declared dead on October 18th, 1956, 7 years after her disappearance and a month after Jules passed away due to heart disease. Myrna was actually the one who put the petition forward to have her stepmother declared deceased legally, and the judge granted her her wish. This case confuses me to no end. I literally remember sitting up a few nights ago trying to piece together everything, and I was like, I don't even know what to think of it. Although this case is so creepy, it almost sounds like an urban legend, it is so heartbreaking that Dorothy's family never found out what happened to her. Definitely let me know down below in the comments what you think, and if you literally have no idea at all, just post a little like confused emoji face so I know you guys are into this series and are paying attention and want to see more. Remember to like this video and subscribe if you're not already, and leave any more recommendations for video ideas down below in the comments. I read every single comment. I love you guys so much, and we'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!